First up, though, delighted to be joined by now Sir Vince Cable, former leader of the Liberal Democrats, of course, and former business secretary in that Tory coalition government from 2010, which, of course, Sir Vince Cable basically destroyed the Liberal Democrats for subsequent elections. But undoubtedly, under Sir Ed Davies' leadership, they are back. 71 MPs, that's even more than the exit poll predicted. What do you make of it?
Well, it's a brilliant outcome. As you rightly said, it's the
I don't think I said it was a brilliant outcome. In all fairness, Sir Vince.
I put words in your mouth in that case. It certainly was a brilliant outcome. I think it reflected very effective targeting, because the British first-past-the-post system demands that. We're very disciplined, and it worked for us. And the second, the national campaign, although it was derided by various critics for the so-called stunts, was very effective in projecting Ed Davey, getting him known and liked, and getting some simple messages across. So it worked very well for us.
Well, a lot of us were saying yesterday that the one thing we were most pleased about the campaign finishing was not having to see Ed Davey in a wetsuit anymore, falling off a paddleboard, going down a water slide, bungee jumping. Apparently he has been filmed this morning doing a bit of dad dancing to Sweet Caroline. So I'm going to save our audience from that if I can. There's no doubt at all. I mean, there's a very, very significant performance for the Liberal Democrats. But we are in a bizarre situation in terms of share of the vote, the actual number of votes, where the Liberal Democrats have got fewer votes, a smaller share of the votes than Reform UK, got 12.2% roughly, compared to Reform UK 14.3%. Reform UK ending up on only 4 seats, even though the exit poll had predicted 13, way past any realistic behind-the-scenes expectation from Reform UK's leaders. But 4 seats for Reform UK, 71 seats for the Liberal Democrats. Now, the Lib Dems have spent years saying it's terribly unfair that we get a load of support, but we don't get very many seats. Now you've got not that much support, but you've got a load of seats. Are you going to stop moaning about the voting system we use?
Well, we don't need to moan about it, because we've learned how to operate within that system. And had we got a number of MPs that reflected our vote share, we'd have got 71, which is what we actually finished up with. So we don't have an axe to grind. But as a matter of principle, the system is completely broken, massively underrepresentative, very unfair to the Greens, the Reform Party, and other small parties, and it's produced a terribly distorted outcome. So the argument for voter reform remains as strong as ever, and we will support it, regardless of the fact that we've managed to operate effectively within the British system.
You still think you do better than under a new system? I mean, in terms of looking nationally, I mean, we did see, Plaid Cymru were doing pretty well. I mean, Labour obviously upping their vote in Wales, and no Tory MPs left in Wales at all. In Scotland, we have seen just a complete change of personnel when it comes to Westminster seats. The SNP down 38 seats to 9. Labour absolutely trouncing every other party in Scotland. What do you make of that?
Well, it's the way that the British voting system tends to produce extreme variations and rushing from one extreme to another in terms of Parliament, and it's not conducive to stable and sensible government. But we've been there. I mean, in 2015, the vast majority of my colleagues, including me, lost our seats. I mean, I won my way back again. But this is not a way to run a country in a stable way, focusing on long-term investment, the kind of things we need to do.
OK, and in terms of the priorities for the Liberal Democrats, there's not going to be an offer of coalition. Labour don't need them, said they won't work with the Conservatives at all. What will be the priorities for the Liberal Democrats in the next Parliament?
Well, the priority, I think, is to be a good constructive opposition. I suspect the Tories are going to be completely preoccupied with survival. I mean, there are large numbers of Tory MPs will probably feel more comfortable with reform. I suspect there will be a realignment on the right. The Reform offer a more authentic version of British nationalism, which a lot of people in that part of the political world wants. So they're going to be preoccupied with that, and it's our job to offer effective opposition in Parliament, and we will concentrate on the things which the Labour parties avoid talking about. The big question of Europe and how we deal with some of the leftover problems from Brexit. They don't.
The fact that Brexit happened.
Well, it's
in your mind,
it's had a massive cost, and it's going to be very difficult for the Labour Party to get the business investment they want. So that's one issue. The whole issue of constitutional reform and the voting system, which we talked about, and local government, which is completely bankrupt. And without dealing with that problem, you can't deal with care, you can't deal with planning because there are no planning officers. So sorting out those issues locally.
There's a lot to be done. Sir Vince Cable, great to speak to you. Thank you for joining us, former leader of the Liberal Democrats, former business secretary in that coalition government.